It's that time again. It's time. It's shoot, Blenny, what time is it?
It's time for the new product roundup that we do every month here on your channel.
Yeah, where we look at all the cool new products in FPV to try to help people stay ahead of it, and we do a massive giveaway. We give away some of these products because if I learned anything from my parents is that if you want people to like you, give them money, and that right. That's how you.
That's I don't know if I got quite that message growing up.
From my parents?
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly how you get views and subscribers. At least that's my understanding. So we will be doing a big giveaway at the end of the video. But in the meantime, we're going to go through some of the new products in FPV. And Plenty, we're going to start with one of the biggest new products to come out this month, the DJI Action 2. I have a full review of this, so I'm cheating a little bit. I know a lot about it. What is your first impression of this camera, Plenty?
I know that there's a lot of hype coming out for this thing, but my general impression of this is if you're not too worried about money, or you're happy to have some floating money in a camera just to have a nice camera that's light, then this is a great option for you. If you're not super concerned with weight, then you should probably just buy a Hero 10. Or something like that. That's my opinion, or what I've seen from a bunch of the different opinions collectively around the area.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think the image quality and the capabilities of the Hero 10 are superior. Maybe even the Hero 8, which is still very good image quality and significantly cheaper, especially if you can find a refurbished one. To me, the big advantage of the DJI Action 2 is the size. Absolutely. If you need something in the 55-gram weight and you don't want to do a naked GoPro or an Insta360 Go 2, this is a great choice. And the ability to do a wide field of view without super view distortion is, I think, a big selling point. The camera has 155-degree field of view. It's massive. It's frankly too much for most applications, in my opinion. But when you go to the wide field of view, it's about the same as a GoPro, but you don't have the super view stretch. So some people will see that as an advantage. There are some downsides though, Blenty. Did you catch what any of those were?
Yeah, I think one of the big things for people is going to be workflow, right? So it's going to be how you bring your footage off and where you're stabilizing and stuff. So I think, this is using, it's rock steady and then horizon steady, I think they call it, as the options. And then, so how do you think that compares to the workflow with the GoPro, where you're either using, some, whatever GoPro's solution is, depending on which version you have, or you're using the, real steady solution on the computer?
Yeah, I think the stabilization between them, if you're doing in-camera stabilization, I think it's pretty comparable. Both of them are pretty good. That DJI camera can do full 360-degree horizon lock, whereas the GoPro Hero 10 needs the wide angle mod to do that. The 9 can currently do that, but the 10 can't because the wide angle mod isn't out yet. That's a very niche edge case. I thought the stabilization was good between both of them. DJI doesn't have post-recording stabilization like Insta360, Real Steady Go, but there are options there. I think the big workflow thing is getting the footage off the camera and the battery life, right? So there's no SD card in the main camera, and it can be slow and cumbersome to get it off, and then the battery is built in and can't be changed. It has to be recharged in the field. But I go into that a little bit more in my full review, and rather than take up a whole bunch more time rehashing that, I think we should move on, and there'll be a link down in the video description to my full review of this camera, as well as all the products we're going to go into. We're going to talk about a lot of products. This video is probably going to be over an hour. If you don't want to sit and watch the whole thing, go down, check out the video description, or check the timeline where there are chapter markers to find any products that you're particularly interested in. And these links down in the video description are affiliate links. That's one of the ways I support myself. If you click those links and then you purchase any product, not just the affiliated product, but any product, I get a little commission. It's an easy thing for you to do. Let's move on, Blenty, though, to the next product, which is going to be we mentioned the Insta360 Go 2, Blenty, as an alternative for somebody looking for a lightweight action camera. But the Go 2 is not a new product. So why is it on our new product roundup this month?
Well, they've released one of the major complaints with the Go 2 that you kind of talked about just with the Action 2 is that onboard storage and then the workflow to get that off of there. In a similar way, this also doesn't have an SD card, so you have to wait for the transfer, plug it in, or use something else. So now there's a 64 gig option instead of the 32 gig options originally came with, so you get double the storage on the footage.
And I know on the DJI FPV, the DJI Action camera, the 22 gigs of usable internal storage is a big deal if you're recording in 4K, because that fills up really fast. On the Insta360 Go, does it do 4K recording? Does it need all that storage?
I think it's 2.7K is the max. Offhand, I don't remember, but yeah. I always shoot in 2.7K. So.
Yeah. So anyway, people definitely complained about that, people who used it. So it's very nice to have this upgraded version if people are looking for it. Of course, the people who already bought the original one are kind of going to be annoyed, but there you go.
Yeah. Also, not a bad increase in price either. Only $30 extra for the MSRP to upgrade that. So,
frankly, that's probably proportional to the cost of the increased storage chip, especially given how expensive components are these days. We got one more product that I wanted to put up at the front, Blunty, before we get into our sort of general categories. Two more products, actually. One of them is this. This is the Redux Air Nano 32 ESC. And as unsexy as ESCs can be, the Redux Air ESC has been one of the best ESCs you can get, especially the best 20mm ESCs you can get. And it's been out of stock for a long time. This is their new design, a F4 processor in a much smaller 20mm form factor. It's relatively new, so we don't know for sure that it's going to carry on the tradition, but it's probably a good bet if you're looking for a 20mm ESC that this is one of the best you can get. I don't know. Any thoughts about that before we move on?
Not too much. This is 128 kilohertz ESC. That's what we're seeing those new F4 processor ESCs come out with, these really high ratings. I believe all these allow you to do like the entire range, as all the F3 BLHeli32s are limited to like 96 to 128 or 48 to 96.
Right.
I believe these F4s allow you to do 32 or
24, 2016.
Yeah, up to 128. I believe that's
yeah. You used to have to choose, well, the manufacturer chose, you didn't get the choice. If you wanted to do an ultra high PWM frequency for some reason, then you couldn't do the lower PWM frequencies. And it really matters because the higher the PWM frequency, sort of the smoother your motors are going to run, but the less torque you've got. And that can especially matter with braking torque. A lot of people actually feel that it's better to run, if you're running larger quads like a 5-inch, on lower PWM frequencies. Whereas micros like Tiny Whoops seem to do better on higher PWM frequencies. That raises the question, would you run a BLHeli 32 ESC at 128 kilohertz on a 3-inch, 4-inch, or 5-inch quad?
Yeah, I don't know. I think now that we're just seeing these, maybe this is the time where we're going to start seeing some more testing of those come back. I don't know that I've seen a lot of that like really high-end testing with, 32.8.2 BLHeli 32 added the by RPM feature, so you can set a low and then it like works up towards the high, but tries to stay as low as it can and avoids the notch, like the RPM harmonics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully, maybe we'll see some more testing with people doing that kind of stuff. I'll be interested to see, because I know one of the big things with these is you have to do a lot of changes to dead time, from what I've been told. So I don't know how these exactly work from 16 to 128 and where the dead time is set and all that stuff too. So
yeah. What category should we start with this month, Blunty?
I guess we could take just a look at the FCs and the ESCs. So
Okay.
Let's see what's going on with the flight controllers this month.
This Holybro Kakute H7, I have not heard so much buzz about a flight controller, at least a BetaFlight flight controller, in a while. Why are people so excited? Not that there's anything wrong with it, but why is this one grabbing people's attention so much, Blunty? Do you have any ideas?
I think the main things that caught me with this is just it's kind of got a little bit of everything, or I mean quite a bit of everything, I would say, and then also it's H7. So we're finally getting into the H7 boards that are available for BetaFlight, that are getting more common. We've seen the Beast AIOs, and we've seen a couple different options. This is another one. Kakute, it seems like a solid option. The price seems good compared to a lot of the other choices. And there's just a lot of things here. We've got dual ESC ports on this. We've talked about that before on a couple flight controllers. So
is that because it's got 8 motor outputs?
I believe so, yeah. 8 motor outputs and an LED, yep.
Okay, so the first one I saw do that was the Lumineer H7 flight controller. It had 8 motor outputs, and you could use it for like a CineLifter, an Octo CineLifter. So that's really nice.
Yeah, we saw that on the Dominic Clifton board, right? As well.
That's true. Was his second set of motor outputs on a daughter board? His has 12 motor outputs. The Dominic Clifton SP Racing flight controller has the most motor outputs of any Betaflight flight controller I know of at 12. I think his needs a daughter board though. Anyway.
And then, so you've got, you got your Barrow, you've got your, so it's always nice to have the Barrow, but then you've got onboard Bluetooth. So this is going to have SpeedyB onboard Bluetooth support, 6 UARTs.
Nice.
And then an extra, 7, but one's used for Bluetooth. You got, your DJI Beck is on there. So
9 volt regulator for DJI. And even if you have a Caddx Vista, which can take 6S voltage natively, you still get some advantage from the power filtering. Cleaner power is always good, even with DJI, both from the perspective of getting better video quality and from the perspective of not frying the UART on your flight controller. Also, if you were going to use this with a CineLifter, you might be running 8S or 12S. Is it good? What's it good up to?
I was going to say it's 9 volt 1.5, so I'm not sure. That's my concern with that.
You can run a Vista off 1.5.
It's like 14 watts or something, right?
I thought it was 10 watts.
Okay, I think
10 watts is the minimum.
Okay.
Maybe if you're running at 1200 milliwatts output power, you would need more. Okay. Presumably, it can do it. Hopefully, and it's good up to 8S. So there you go. Yeah. Very nice. I've always been a fan of the Holybro Kakute flight controllers. I've thought they had really nice layout, very versatile. My biggest complaint about them, if I do have one, is that the copper around the solder pads is very, very thin, and it could be really difficult to get solder to stick, to heat these tiny little rims enough to get the solder to stick. But if you're willing and able to work around that, these are very versatile and very capable flight controllers. And as you said, Blunty, at a price of $70, I hate to say it, but the JBF7 with an F7 processor, not an H7, recently went up to a price of like $80, $85 just based on our component cost. And this is more capable and lower priced. So yeah, that's just a fact, as much as I hate to say it.
Yeah, hopefully these hold up and they work out well for people, but yeah, the price is killer, and so far I've been happy with what I've seen from them. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving on, we've got another flight controller that is really interesting, the Axis Flying Plug and Play Stack. And this answers the question that people constantly ask, which is, why can't I just build a flight controller without soldering? Well, that's not entirely true, right, Blunty?
Yeah, you're going to get close. I mean, this is about as close as you can get, I think. So this is, it seems like the goal here is like, hey, you just want to buy a box that you plug everything into and then solder as little as possible and you can fly. And yeah, that's what you're getting here. So you're getting a nice little encased, heat sinked, reminds me a lot of a Rush stack, I would assume. Something similar to that. And then, you got all your plugs here, and really all you're going to have to solder is your main ESC leads and your main motor leads.
Yep. So still some soldering. I mean, presumably you could sell this with like some MT30 connectors like 533 Racing does, and then you could plug the motors in, and you could sell it with a battery lead pre-soldered, and you could really approach an entire solder-free build. The missing part, of course, is going to be the plugs for your receiver and so forth. If those aren't pre-made, then you're going to be soldering those up. But it's still an interesting and innovative approach from Axis Flying that is going to be right for some people. I feel like I need to point out that the iFlight Success E series does the same thing without the cute little box, which is that they have plugs for basically everything. They also have solder pads, of course. So I feel like iFlight deserves a little bit of credit here, and would like to just call that out. All
Yeah.
right.
Um,
Price. Ooh,
I
oh
would
God.
say, yeah. So notable things about this, I would say, are this is also dual, two sets of motor outputs. Like we looked at on the last one. Also, 128 kilohertz processor on the, or 128 kilohertz PWM on the ESC. So kind of similar to some of the previous things we were looking at. But yeah, I think the thing you saw just now is the stack price here is 150.
$150, and that is unfortunately a not as ridiculous a price as you probably think it is, dear viewer, because these days a lot of stuff is going up in price significantly because of component costs. So I don't think you should think Axis Flying is ripping me off here. I think that they are trying to maintain what would have been considered a normal profit margin, given that things cost 2 or 3 times as much, the components that go into it. But, well, regardless of what you think of the price, it's really good to see Axis Flying continuing to try to come out with innovative and interesting products. You always need somebody doing something different to push the hobby in different directions, even if maybe this specific product isn't the exact right one for you. Speaking of people who are pushing the hobby in interesting directions, Blunty, we have 2 KISS flight controllers. Now, we already talked, I think, about the FETtec G4 previously. We talked about that in the new product roundup and in the news. We've got another one to compare to it, the KISS FCFC Ultra.
Yeah, and so this is a good kind of time to talk about the differences. So now, I don't even know if this is the case. Like, it wasn't public last month, but basically this month is where we have the total split now on all the firmwares. So Ultra is its own thing now. Ultra is built, it's like 85% Ultra code, 15% KISS code. So it's its own firmware that you're flashing to the Ultra. I believe you can still flash KISS code to it as well. But this is basically made by Alexander Fedorov, who is like taking his own branch, and then he's making the FCFC Ultra line. So he's doing his own code, he's got his own OSD and stuff, and all that kind of stuff. And then FETtec is also doing that now. So that wasn't a thing, before the last month. FETtec is now doing their own complete rewrite of the firmware. It's not based on KISS anymore. It's completely new FETtec firmware, and you can run that or the older KISS firmwares on the G4s, and so and also the F7s now is backported to them as well.
And I don't blame people if they're a little bit confused by all this nonsense. I certainly have also struggled to keep the whole sort of branching history of the KISS ecosystem straight. But they basically continue to be marketed under the KISS name because people recognize it. But we have this branch now between Alexander Fedorov, who is the KISS Ultra line, and the FETtec guys, Felix, thank you, Felix. And that's the FETtec line. And previously, they both have been sort of basing their stuff on the same original KISS code base, which was contributed to by various people. But now they're sort of making a clean start. And the reason that stands out to me is that I've heard from, I just assumed they all flew the same code and they all flew the same. But I'm looking forward to trying out a KISS Ultra because people who fly a lot of KISS, which I don't, they have said, oh no, the KISS Ultra, they've said very positive. I don't know, people always say that, but I was surprised to see them like putting down FETtec a little bit and saying KISS Ultra was better.
Well, up until, like a couple weeks ago, it was not public that FETtec was making their own firmware as well. So it'll be interesting to see now, now that we have basically 3 divisions. So we have like original KISS, which is Flyduino, FCFC Ultra, which is Ultra, and that is not Flyduino. Just while it's shown on the Flyduino page, they are selling it. But Alex is not Flyduino
at all with the development.
Yes, it's just a licensing deal from KISS.
Yes,
and then FETtec is again a separate company again with Felix making FETtec firmware. So it is definitely confusing, but it's also awesome to see that even in this closed source stuff, we've got these 3 separate kind of lines of development and 2 major ones we're seeing now, which is this FETtec versus Ultra. It'll be just super neat to see this progress.
And it's worth saying that FETtec has just come out with their own completely revamped firmware, which I haven't gotten feedback from people who are flying it because it's so new. But it's certainly possible that the things people are saying about KISS Ultra flying so much better than FETtec will change once people get their hands on this new firmware from FETtec.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It seems like the big difference is FETtec is 100% fresh code. So he's like starting over and like, hey, let's take what we've learned and try this from the ground up. And KISS is the Ultra FCFC Ultra stuff is saying, hey, let's take the KISS base that was really good and let's shave off like the top 85% of that and just take the base flight stuff and then clean it all up, change the flight code, fix a bunch of stuff. And yeah, again, it's really cool to see these approaches, and I'm happy to see where the development ends up. So
yeah, before we move on, I do want to make sure everybody notices this KISS FCFC Ultra is the flight controller alone for €60, and then on the right side of the screen here, we've got the KISS AIO, the FETtec AIO 35 amp flight controller and ESC. So that $129 price is for a 35 amp all-in-one flight controller and ESC. Of course, there is also just a flight controller version of the G4, which comes in at, I think, around €70. So a little bit more expensive than the Ultra, but not as much as it looks like here. Very exciting stuff going on there. Let's see. Blunty, we got any more flight controllers or ESCs before we move on?
Yeah, so we got one more. We're going to take a look at one more ESC, the Foxeer Reaper Mini ESC. Yeah, it's recently out from Foxeer.
Yeah. I'm always looking for a good 20mm ESC that can take a beating and not blow up. And the Foxeer Reaper has consistently stood out among a lot of racers, especially on a budget like it. Although with a $90 price, I'm not sure how you can call that a budget anymore, but there you go. But if you're looking for a solid 20mm ESC, I still think the Redux Air, just based on reputation and history, probably is a little bit better, but it's not always in stock. And Foxeer Reaper is high on the list. So. All right.
Yeah.
Next up, let's talk about DJI. The first thing I want to bring up this month is that if you're looking for a naked Caddx Vista with just about any dang camera you could ask for, it is now available at GetFPV. We talked about this last month when Flywoo started selling the naked Polar Nano, but not everybody wants that camera. And now it looks like GetFPV is. I don't know if the GetFPV is the ones actually cleaning the boards or if they're getting them from somewhere else, but they got all the cameras. And how much weight do you save when you take those heat sinks off? Do you know?
I think it's about 10 grams, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 grams. It's like 24 or 23 grams to 14 something for the Nebula Nano. So I think they all drop around 10 grams.
And for people who are worried about durability, obviously when you have a naked board like this, the way it's mounted is going to affect durability. But as far as heat dissipation and everything, it will shut down from overheating faster if you don't fly, but it will not. You can run it at full power all day long and it won't burn itself out. Anybody who's worried about removing those heat sinks, that's really the only effect. And if it's properly mounted, it's reasonably durable. So if you're trying to save 10 grams on a lightweight build, here it is. I wonder if I should I just change all my quads with Vistas in them over to naked Vistas and just like say, screw it, I'm saving 10 grams? Maybe I'll do that.
I mean, I don't know. There's not a lot of reason not to do that, I think, currently, unless you like want to fly, I guess, waterproof. So you probably want to coat them, you know?
I think they're already coated from the factory. The air unit is for sure.
Oh, okay.
I wonder.
Interesting. I figured it was just kind of watertight because the way the seals work around the boards, but I didn't know. It's actually coated.
I guess I don't know for sure. I guess I would be careful. Maybe I'm just going to. The big reason to not use a naked Vista is the hassle of opening it up and cleaning it, especially getting that blue goop off it. So if somebody else is going to do it for me, how's the price? Are they charging anything for this?
I don't know. I was looking at that. I'm not sure that a Vista with a Polar.
Vista Kit Air Unit Light with digital, $165 from Caddx for the DJI camera. Ooh, $185. Okay, that's not nothing. It's fair for the amount of work that goes into cleaning these damn things, but it's not nothing.
So it's $20 if you don't feel like cleaning off your stuff and doing it yourself, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's not nothing. All right. What else have we got from DJI for DJI this month?
Well, so we got the Foxeer Apollo. A Foxeer Apollo is Foxeer's new camera for DJI. Unfortunately, another 60 FPS camera. I know we're always hoping for more 120s. Low latency camera.
It's true.
Yeah, this will be interesting because will be another. It looks like decent DJI camera. There's been a little bit of footage around if you search, but not super exciting. They are selling this with a Starlight lens, which is kind of interesting. Just a larger lens option if you want it for a larger FOV. But this is going to be another one of those cameras with kind of a dual release. So they're going to do the Apollo, and then as we move into our SharkBite section, we could look at the Digisight V3, which will be the same camera but designed for SharkBite.
So hang on, Blunty. This is the Foxeer Digisight 3. It's a SharkBite camera, and you're saying it's the exact same camera as the Apollo. They're not even calling it the Apollo for SharkBite. They're changing the name to Digisight.
Yeah, for some reason. Yeah, for some reason they've decided to carry Digisight on with these cameras, with this camera, even though it is doesn't look anything like the original Digisight, as far as I can tell.
Which was an analog camera. Was it?
Right.
No.
No, the Digisight was the SharkBite camera.
Oh, okay. So Digisight was Foxeer's original SharkBite camera. This is a completely different camera, but it's carrying on the Digisight name, and it's the same as the Apollo for DJI. Does that mean that finally we will get to see a side-by-side comparison of SharkBite and DJI with the exact same camera?
I think we got that with the RunCam Mippy, right? Because the RunCam Mippy was they're the equivalent of that. I can't remember which camera. We've had I remember having this discussion before.
All right. I'm not sure about that. I know I didn't do the comparison.
Okay.
Maybe you're right.
But yeah, they're selling this with the exact same options. This will have the Starlight lens and everything in the same way. So.
And the same price. So,
yeah.
All right. It'll be interesting to compare this Foxeer camera to the RunCam camera, the HD0 RunCam camera, which is currently the best SharkBite camera you can get. There's another piece of SharkBite news, as long as we're segueing, and that is this new video transmitter for SharkBite. In some ways, it's not that exciting because it's the exact same video transmitter as the SharkBite Race VTX that came out previously, but it's just in a little bit easier to mount, a little bit tighter form factor. Still 20 millimeter mounting, but it's just a little easier to fit into most race frames. $70 for that.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is 200 milliwatts, so it's like a similar, it's just a better form factor version, like you said, of the Race VTX we've already had. So I think for a lot of racers, this is pretty exciting because it fits a lot better in the frames they want and hopefully can take less damage because of the form factor. But I think the big exciting thing that most people are hoping for soon with HD0 and SharkBite is the 1 watt VTX. Unfortunately, I haven't seen that yet, but we have seen some previews of that, and hopefully that will be out soon. So
yeah, I know some people who are testing it, and I'm not going to violate their privacy by telling you secret things about it, but I am very excited to get my hands on it, and you can bet we'll be covering it here as soon as there's public information about it. Well, Blunty, as fun as it is to talk about DJI and SharkBite, some plebs out there still fly analog. You poor, literally poor people. And why else would you be flying analog? Oh, I'm joking. Please argue with me in the comments. YouTube loves the engagement. No, I'm teasing. But we have an analog VTX here, the GEPRC RAD VTX. And this stands out to me because I'm always on the hunt for new VTXs with high output power. This one is rated as 1,000 milliwatts plus. Nobody will actually say they do more than a watt because they don't want to get in trouble with the FCC. Presumably it's more than a watt though. And GEPRC usually has okay hardware quality. This goes up there with the Rush Solo and of course the TBS Unify Pro HV as some other 1 watt plus VTXs. Well, worth a look if you want to get the most analog range possible.
Yeah, Gal Kramer has a video, and it looks like it's 1.6 watts.
Oh gosh, that's more. I mean, I was thinking it would be like 1.2 or 1.3 watts, which is typically what these quote unquote 1 watt plus VTXs are. 1.6 that's fair. That's a lot. Nice, $50. It is 30 by 30 mounting, so some people are going to not like that. That's also true of the Rush Solo isn't quite 30 by 30, but it's not quite 20 by 20 either. If you're looking for a 20 by 20 VTX, I like the Rush Tank Ultimate. There's a 20 by 20 version that outputs 800 milliwatts, which is the most of any 20 millimeter VTX that I'm aware of.
All right, so let's take a look at a couple bind and fly quads, ready to fly quads. We're actually going to take a look at the EMAX Tinyhawk 3. This is pretty exciting. EMAX has had the Tinyhawk 1 and 2 and a couple other Tinyhawk and kit style things, the Baby Hawk and the Easy Pilot and stuff. This seems to be their new entry into that whole category with the new goggles and a new radio and a new drone. So
I've always thought that EMAX's bind and fly kits are some of the best for someone just getting into the hobby. They're not perfect. Nothing is at this price point. I think the radio was the weak spot, the controller. The quad was definitely the star, and the goggles were somewhere in the middle. Let's see. I mean, I guess we can't really judge the quality because it's a brand new product. $300, that hurts. So a kit like this would have been 2 years ago, $250, maybe at most. But that's just how life is these days.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the cost seems to be coming from the Tinyhawk, or more than I would expect. So they're selling this Tinyhawk. I believe the price is $170 or $175 standalone. And so I don't think it's too bad a price if you look at for the $50 radio or equivalent is probably what that is. And then the goggles kind of act like the EV what is it, 800D, where you can remove the front and use it as a screen.
Yeah,
and then
that's nice.
it actually ships with the connector, so you can screw it onto the radio and then look at the radio screen
if you don't want to wear it to your face, that's slick. Yeah, that's slick. Nice.
There's
little
a picture of it.
Case. Yeah, you can have it mounted. I mean, the big problem with that, as anyone who's tried it knows, is if you're outdoors, the sun just kills the screen. The glare is too much. But this is a quad that will be flown indoors a lot of the time, so that may be something people would like. I mean, Tinyhawk 3. What any highlights of the differences between the Tinyhawk 3 and the previous ones?
Yeah, so great change that they made is that this is not using the traditional Tinyhawk form factor board. This is using a real traditional tiny whoop size board. So you can replace it. It's not like weird
without having to buy that one EMAX board that only EMAX makes.
Correct.
Nice. Or you could upgrade it if you wanted to.
Yes. One of the issues is, unfortunately, this is they use a tiny D8 receiver. So it is an SPI receiver, but it's literally only D8. You can't configure it at all, which is unfortunate. And that's the only option this comes with is D8. So
Yeah, go ahead. That's what I was going to say.
It comes with its own radio, and the radio is meant for D8, so that's understandable. But many people are also going to have a radio who buy it standalone instead of buying it in a kit. So it is unfortunate that there's not an option to run anything else on SPI, like Red Pine or something that could be run there.
Yeah. Can you solder? Do you know if the flight controller has pads to solder on, like an Express ELRS EP2 receiver or something like that?
I believe there is a free UART. I believe it lists specifically that there's a free UART to solder a receiver on.
Yeah.
So.
Can you plug the controller into the computer via USB? So previous EMAX controllers, you had to use the quad as a sort of a translator. And BetaFlight has that built in, but it's a little cumbersome. And plugging it directly would be nice. Do you know?
Believe so, but I can't give you that for sure.
It does have a USB plug, but we don't know for sure whether that's just for charging.
Yeah, I don't know that it's running up in TX. I have not confirmed that.
I would like to get one of these and test it. This is the first. I'm a little bit excited about this. I might try to get one of these and test it. So, in the meantime,
if the radio is decent at all, reminds me of a cheap QX7. So, there's no screen and stuff, but the gimbals seem like they look like those cheap QX7 style gimbals instead of the super cheap. The last radio EMAX had was terrible.
Yeah. It was like toy grade gimbals. This actually looks like cheap hobby grade gimbals.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Let's see. We got one more bind and fly in this month's roundup, and that is the GEPRC CineLog 3.5. And this one stood out to me. I actually have it. I'm working on my review of it, and because I know that I'm not a super expert on tiny whoops or cinewhoops, I sent it to Ciati and had him try it out before I even saw it. And at one point, Blunty, he was like, so when's your review going to come out? Because he didn't realize that they hadn't sent both of us one. And I was like, whenever you send it to me, SOB, he was like, oh, sorry, I'll get it in the mail. I am pretty impressed with this. The way they've redesigned the ducts is much more durable than Cinewhoop ducts often are. They're not really ducts, they're prop guards. Cinewhoops haven't used ducts for a while now, so fine. So it flies good, especially if you're carrying a heavier camera like a Hero 10. But my big question are people dying for a 3.5 inch, or I've seen 4-inch ducted quad? Are you going to fly this indoors, or are you going to want something smaller? And if you're flying it outdoors, are you going to want just a 5-inch? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page with you there. I can't say that I've flown this size, but like flying a 3-inch, like a Slam Squirt, seems like plenty big for most of the indoor stuff that I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. And it can still carry Hero 10. So, I'm not sure. I would be interested to see from your and Ciati's opinions, like if you think there's a place for it. But I would guess it's probably a little large. Like, what's the benefit? What are you gaining, I guess, from it?
Well,
right?
I mean, kind of larger props. So you're gaining more efficiency, especially when carrying that weight. You got more thrust to carry the weight, have a little bit more responsiveness, better handling for acro maneuvers, right? Yep. And 2004 motors is a great torquey motor for a 3.5-inch prop. It's maybe even not, I wouldn't say oversized, but certainly it's adequate. I guess the flip side of that question is, how much bigger is it really than a 3-inch? And when you're flying indoors, are you really going to care? And I don't know. I'm still thinking about the answer to that question, but these are the kind of things I consider as it's a solid quad overall. I'm just not sure.
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
Also, if it handles well outside, like if it is more sturdy because the prop dimensions and stuff, then maybe you can have it like as a crossover thing, where maybe it's like a little large for inside, but it's certainly shootable. And then you can have something kind of that's dual purpose. You could do both, which I could definitely understand that part of it.
That's a good point. A lot of the kind of shots that Cinewhoop pilots are doing are transitioning from outside to inside or vice versa. So you're not just chasing a mountain biker downhill, for which you would clearly want a 5-inch or even maybe a 7-inch. You're not just flying indoors through that bowling alley, for which I feel like a 3-inch or maybe even a little smaller would be ideal. You know, if you imagine that shot in that bowling alley video where the bartender reaches out to pull the pint and the quad like flies under his arm, but through that gap, an extra inch in prop diameter is going to make that shot harder, and the actor is going to feel less secure.
100%.
But at the same time, you're not going to get those long cruising shots it's going to be harder with a 3-inch. Go ahead.
Yeah. Also from like, I think I would agree with that noise perspective. Like maybe you could find a way to use lower pitch props and you'd actually have less noise from this somehow, but I would expect you're going to get more noise from something that's like kind of bigger like this. I don't know, actually. I guess if you're carrying the same weight load.
Well, I don't want to shoot you down there, but Ciati actually said he felt it was quieter. The larger props can spin at lower RPM and are quieter than the smaller ones. So in that respect, but a larger quad is a little bit more threatening to an actor, maybe who might be familiar with it. Anyway, this is pretty good though. If you want a 3.5-inch Cinewhoop and you're thinking about this versus maybe the ProTech 35, I also reviewed the ProTech 35, and this is not an in-depth endorsement. They both have their pros and cons, but I feel like right this minute, I would be like 52% leaning towards the GEPRC over the ProTech. The ProTech has been improved since I last flew it, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But anyway, moving on.
So next up, let's move on over to frames, and you brought a frame from Rotor Riot today. What are we looking at?
I do. This is the new frame from Rotor Riot. It's Bubby FPV sponsored frame, the Moxy. And so like I always try not to do any like favors for my friends. Obviously Rotor Riot are my friends, both personally and professionally. But obviously when they put a new product out, we want to include it. I have to say though, let me do this. So here's the Skyliner HD. This is Drew's signature frame. And here's Bubby's signature frame. I mean, obviously they're not identical. I'm not that excited about the Skyliner, which I feel has, like, obviously Drew flies it, he bashes the hell out of it, and he gets great results with it. No one can take that away from him. But like these fat, thick arms are from the days when we had individual ESCs. And if anybody needed to be convinced that thick arms, flat thick arms are the wrong way to go, Chris Rosser's vibration analysis, he's talked about why that the closer you can get to a square, right, the better your resonance characteristics are. So it just, and then the top plate, it's like there's no cutouts, there's nothing. It's just like somebody went whonk, 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 and cut it out of carbon. It just feels very basic, the design, and dated. And for Bubby to have this signature frame based on what it looks like to me to be a very basic and dated design is like, I don't know. Especially somebody as young as Bubby, why isn't his frame like, mwah, the latest hotness? You've gone silent. You're just staring at it.
So my counter to that would be, I really like the Skyliner. I think it's a great frame. My only problem with Skyliner is cost. And this is a $60 version of that without all the bells and whistles. So I don't know. I don't hate it that much, to be honest with you.
$90 for the Skyliner HD.
Right. That's my biggest problem with the Skyliner. It's like, I love that frame. My arms are so beat up. I have 4 arms I bought for that frame I've never used. Yeah, I don't know. I really like the Skyliner. I think it's heavy, and there's no cutouts, like you said, and it's very basic, but it also flies fine. I have a JBF4 on that, and I think it's a great frame. So I don't know. I don't fly a ton of frames. I'm not a big like frame snob either, so I don't really care about how they look. I care about how they fly, and it just feels sturdy as heck. Like if I pick that frame up versus anything else, it just feels like it's all a solid piece, which I know for some resonance characteristics that can be a problem, but I run, I think 1.5 filters and it's fine. So.
The flip side of resonance, I mean, as long as you can get the flight characteristics you want, everything else is just sort of dick measuring. So, I mean, if it gets good results, that's what really matters. The other thing is the weight. This one is a little bit, that was the Skyliner HD, to be fair. This is just...
well, this is it's built for HD. It looks like, because he's got the mount for the air unit in the back. So
oh yeah, you're right. So it looks smaller than the Skyliner HD, although I'm not 100% sure. I'm getting the scale, and they've got this camera, this GoPro up tilt integrated into this front end. I do like this 3D printed camera mount that lets you adjust the angle and gets the width right. I've always thought that was pretty cool. I feel like this is more like a $60 frame than the Skyliner is a $90 frame. I will agree with you there. I got another frame here. This one, I feel like it's a little bit unfortunately named, at least for a prude like me. I've been to Burning Man. Shut up. It's called the RVS Creamer. I'm just going to assume they mean like coffee creamer. Kids, ask your parents. Don't ask your parents. Definitely don't tell them I told you to ask your parents what that word might also mean.
I'm assuming it means, cream something like run into it, so they're going to cream it.
There you go. Or creamy smooth like butter.
Yeah.
Now, I should say this, the guy who makes this frame actually sent me one, and it's been, like many things, sitting on my shelf waiting for me to get around to reviewing it. But I thought the least I could do is include it in the new product roundup. And I don't just take anything for review. My rule is that it has to have at least one like interesting thing before I'll mention it. And the way he's done the front end on this is pretty interesting to me. What do you think of this front end design? Let me see if I can get a good picture for you.
What are we looking at here? Okay, so is that like some kind of brace around the back standoff there?
Yeah, well, so this carbon piece is a brace, and you can see it. The standoff goes through it, right? The screw goes through it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right.
So basically, it's just adding that like what is it? Horizontal stability.
Yeah,
that section.
It's essentially thickening the carbon in that one location, which of course is where all the stress is concentrated in a crash. It's a clever way of effectively getting a thicker bottom plate without the weight of a thicker bottom plate, or doing a split deck design. So a lot of people would do a split deck design and they do the front plate thicker. But this has just a single plate. It's a clever little design and a good looking frame.
Yeah, I'm interested. It's doesn't like jump out at me, but yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see what you think about it.
Look, do you see how the arms have these curves? These natural looking like tapers. That's a frame that was designed in 2021 or 2020 and not 2017. where you have straight lines. Does it matter? Does it decrease durability? Maybe. There you go. All right. So I'll be testing this out and seeing what I think of it, but I thought it was worth a mention. And we've got one more, and this was submitted by a viewer. This is the Pirat Frames Hook. And Blunty, the one thing about this that stands out, I mean, there's more than one, but the thing that made me go, okay, let's put it on here, comes with Torx screws. Pro or con, Blunty?
I don't know. I think most people have Torx, but it's probably a con because I don't know what the Pro is.
Well, the Pro is it's not going to strip out like an M3 sometimes does.
Oh, I don't know the last time I stripped a screw out on a frame, but I guess it happens. Is what I would say.
Now they are aluminum. Well, here's the pitch. I'm going to try to make the pitch here, Blunty.
Okay.
Are aluminum screws lighter than steel screws?
Yes.
Yes, by a fair amount, actually. If you take all the screws out of your frame and put them on a scale, you might be surprised at just how much dang weight the screws make up. But I'd never switch to aluminum screws because aluminum M3 screws strip so easy. Well, this lets you have aluminum screws without stripping them out because they're Torx screws. So you're saving weight. Huh?
Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting concept. I don't know how much weight you're saving on a frame like this, but sure.
I bet you save 10 grams. Maybe more. I bet you save 10 grams.
Interesting.
Oh, they provide... Oh, no, I thought they provided you with a Torx bit. You guys should throw in a Torx bit. That's a great little marketing thing you should do. Just like when you buy a big box of deck screws, they give you the star bit to go with it. That's a cool... It probably costs you 10 cents. You have a cool little marketing thing. We'll throw in the Torx bit. Auto-adjustable camera plates. You can change the width with a simple rotation of the camera plate. It's kind of cool.
Looks like they've got a little design on the arms there with the little pokies.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting.
I guess that's...
Vista mount.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just don't know that I've seen a sideways Vista mount like that before. That's kind of interesting. Normally they, it's just like every frame does the standard, but because it's single standoff, they've got it kind of sideways mounted back there. So that's kind of clever.
Is it in fact supported in a way that Chris Rosser would approve of? Or is it dangling loose in a way that Chris Rosser would think creates bad resonance? I think it's dangling.
I think it's dangling, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to hang the antenna off this way, I do think there's an argument that you should have like 3 points of contact instead of just having it sort of hanging off cantilevered. The resonance is going to be much worse with it cantilevered, but that's a 3D print.
Also, interesting, they offer this in 5, 5.5, 6, and 7, which is kind of nice. So you can kind of choose whatever prop dimensions you like.
Mm-hmm. Good bevels on the carbon. Very nice. Very nice. It's a nice looking frame. It's a nice looking frame.
We might talk a little bit about marketing later, but one of the marketing things here I think is pretty hilarious is telepathic and precise flying feel.
Oh yeah, because of the toilet tank battery. You know what? Let's talk about Express LRS. Every month there are so many new products with Express LRS in them. We've kind of made Express LRS its own category. And again, if you're completely sick of hearing about Express LRS, there are timestamps down in the video description and in the timeline. But what is our first Express LRS product this month?
So most people are aware of the Mobula 6, the classic bind and fly whoop from Happy Model, and now we've got the Mobula 6 Express LRS. So this is just one that ships with Express LRS SPI on board. Unfortunately, it's 915, which is a little
oh my God, you can see, is that the antenna? Is that the antenna dangling off the back?
We guess so, because it's got to be pretty big, right?
What? Happy Model. You make EP2 receivers in 2.4 gigahertz with a ceramic antenna on board. You make them. Why would you put a 900 megahertz receiver with a big dangly antenna on your... What were you thinking? File this under the category of, what were you thinking?
So it looks like they do have two versions of this. So they're split SKUs, so they do have a 2.4 as well.
Oh, thank God.
Not sure who would buy the 900.
Please tell me it's the ceramic antenna.
It looks like it's probably that.
Yeah. That's the VTX there. No, that's the VTX, right? Surely. That's the VTX antenna. Please be the VTX antenna. 5 gigahertz video.
I don't know that we can see that.
Antenna linear dipole. Damn it. All right. Why would you not use the ceramic antenna? Please. Anyway, moving on from that complaint. It is exciting to see tiny whoops with Express LRS in them because you're going to get so much more range than the traditional 2.4 gigahertz receivers that are in them.
So other notable things about this, they have called it audible on the motor sizes. So previously these used to come with 0802s. Now we're going to get 0702s for a little bit reduced weight, but hopefully similar performance. So these are 0702 26,000 kV, so a little higher kV, a little smaller motor. I
don't know what world we're living in where you can reduce a motor size by that much and get the same performance. I mean, I guess if the 0802 motors were oversized, then by reducing the motor size, you get lower weight and better performance with adequate torque. Maybe that's the argument you could make. I don't know, though. What do you fly a lot of whoops? What do you think?
Yeah, I like smaller motors, so I like 06s, so I think these are fine. That's what I would say.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I trust your judgment. You're a very accomplished tiny whoop racer, so all right. Continuing on with Express LRS stuff, we've got a BetaFPV flight controller. This is a BetaFPV 1S toothpick or whoop flight controller with built-in Express LRS and a ceramic antenna. Yay. And in case people don't know why I'm harping on the ceramic antenna, you see this little black thing here? That's the antenna. Nothing dangling, nothing to mount, nothing to get caught in your props. And this one is different because it also has an SPI-based receiver, whereas the previous BetaFPV tiny whoop toothpick flight controller had a UART-based one. So, any thoughts about this, Blunty?
Yeah, it's just good to see them stepping into that area. They kind of, have to, like you said, with the little receiver on the board, and now we've got fully integrated SPI. So, yeah, it is good to see.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, we've got a new product from Matek. I'm super excited to see Matek making Express LRS gear because generally the quality of Matek hardware is pretty high. What stands out about this one, Blunty?
So we've seen Matek did some Express LRS PWM options previously, but people were still hoping for some direct PWM options for stuff like wings to just get right into it. And basically with Bry's work, I believe, and then a couple other folks, they were able to get the standard Express LRS working with 5 outputs. So Matek said, no problem. So let's make one. And they made one with these little servo pins on it so you can plug right in.
So this is not a converter, not like a Crossfire to PWM converter, which Matek also makes. And that actually gives you a full 16 channels, right?
Correct.
16?
Yeah, about 12 maybe.
Maybe 12.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Whereas this drives 5 servos directly. Obviously, it doesn't have a 5-volt BEC built in to power your servos, but has 5. And are they full range, full precision PWM outputs? Or are they like 128?
I believe all 5 are full range. At least 4 would be, but I believe all 5 are.
Oh, of course, because Express LRS always has the first 4 channels be full range. So if you're looking to put a Express LRS receiver in a small plane and you only need 5 channels, this is a great way to go. Does it also output like digital if you wanted to wire it to a flight controller for any reason, or is this servo only?
I believe so. There is a labeled TX RX on it, I believe, as well. So.
I see. So in theory, you could put the TX and the RX to your flight controller and get the full range of channels. It does. I guess that would depend on the code. Is the code also carrying all the channels, or does it only carry the first 5 channels to get the PWM outputs?
Not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it says receiver protocol PWM or CRSF.
Oh, so it's one or the other, but not both. That makes a lot of sense. Still, very cool to see the ExpressLRS team moving so quickly to respond to, let's face it, is a little bit of an edge case. Obviously, a lot of people fly planes, but the intersection of the Venn diagram of who flies planes and who flies ExpressLRS is probably pretty small. And so it's great to see the ExpressLRS team and Captain Bry specifically working so quickly to give us this feature, and Matek working so quickly to give us a receiver we can use.
Yeah.
All right. We got one more ExpressLRS product this month, Blunty, and this one's a little controversial. Why don't you? I've said some things about this that people might consider to me to be a little bit biased. Why don't you tell us your thoughts about this ExpressLRS module from BetaFPV?
Yeah, so basically, this is BetaFPV's new micro TX module. The 2.4 gig is the one we're mainly concerned with, but I believe there's different versions of it. But this is the arc reactor, so they're calling it, kind of like an alternative to the Iron Man. But there's a couple of caveats with this. One of the main ones is that there was no direct contact with the developers when they made this module. So there's some caveats in the firmware and how it operates. One of the big things is that the OLED screen, like the joystick doesn't work, so you're pressing to scroll and you're holding to change features. And then also, for whatever reason, because of the way they build it, all their custom stuff, basically if you hit the button while the quad is armed or while anything's happening, it just drops the link to the receiver if you hit the button on the back of the module. And this is just because of how they've coded it in. OLED will be officially supported by ExpressLRS in 2.1, but we're currently in 2.0 RC, so it'll be a little while until we see that happen. And unfortunately, BetaFPV's implementation without communicating with developers was not great.
Yeah, so I'll try to take the devil's advocate side here, and I'll be positive about it, since I was a little bit negative about it in my review. Some people felt I was excessively negative. Overall, it seems like this is a really nicely built module. The injection mold is really solid. At least mine fits perfectly in my JR module bay, and just has a general fit and finish that I think some of the ExpressLRS modules have a little bit more of a rickety feel. The inclusion of the OLED screen is great. People have pointed out that it means that you could use this module with a Spectrum DX9 or higher, which support Crossfire natively. But they don't support Lua script, so you need a screen on the module. It's very exciting and a lot of potential here for this to be a very good module, especially at the price point. The decisions that BetaFPV made will be fixed when ExpressLRS 2.1 comes out. So and many people would be able to work around them today. In other words, just don't use the screen. In fact, you could flash ExpressLRS 2.0 to this module. It would work fine. And the screen just wouldn't. It would show the options, but you couldn't change them. So and then, someday it'll be fine. That's the case for this module, I think.
Yeah, also on this page as well, if you scroll down, they've already made a note about the the button issues. This is the joystick issues. So they're promising, if you scroll up a little bit from there, there's red text up a little more. There you go. Mm-hmm. But they have promised that they are fixing that ASAP. To get that going, and they posted a lot on Facebook about the different issues some people have had and how they could fix them or why they feel that way. So yeah, they are at least interacting now that they've been called out. It's unfortunate that they were not interacting previously with everyone and the developers, but hopefully this all comes back together as a good module. And overall, I don't think this is a terrible option.
I don't think so either, despite the fact that my initial reaction when I saw that pressing the joystick button causes the link to failsafe was, and that the joystick isn't actually a joystick, it's a button. I think
my biggest,
go ahead.
My biggest concern with this is just that it's from BetaFPV. I feel like I have to say that because this is a radio link. So, when I consider who I'm buying stuff from, people like Happy Model and especially BetaFPV, I'm not super. I can't guarantee you that batch 3 of this will be made in the same quality as batch 1 will be, stuff like that.
I hate to keep banging that drum every time we talk about this, but I feel like we have a history of inconsistent quality is what I like to say. Sometimes it's very good, especially in batch number 1. And then sometimes in batch number 3, it's not so good and it's hard to predict. I'm very impressed with BetaFPV's response to the criticism. There were other criticisms of this module that I didn't necessarily share, and we don't need to like rehash them in our limited time, but they released a lot of information responding a very sort of with facts and not emotion about why they made the decisions they did, and why some of the criticism they disagree with, acknowledging other criticism and saying they'll fix it. I think their response to the criticism has been immaculate. Now you have to follow through. And the single biggest thing that they could have done differently would be to have been more in touch with the BetaFPV devs, because these things would have been called out before the product release and hopefully would have been fixed, as opposed to sort of putting it out there and then going, yeah, I'm sure we'll take care of it. Blunty, I also want to mention, we need to mention the Namnimno Flash module. And the only reason we need to mention this is because it is a module from Namnimno, which has had a pretty good track record so far of making expressionless hardware, and it has similar features to the BetaFPV module, and it's not available yet. And in fact, the first version had a problem that they recalled it. But if you were shopping for the BetaFPV micro module, I think you should at least look at this one before you make your buying decision.
So next up, let's take a look at cameras. I think maybe that's a good place to go. And first up, we can take a look at the camera that comes with the Tinyhawk 3 that we looked at earlier, the new RunCam Nano 4.
Yeah, and this one, frankly, was not really on my list, Blunty, but a lot of people out there who fly very, very small quads want the lightest camera possible that still gives good image quality. And this style of sort of board camera with no case is what they're looking for. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Unfortunately, one of the issues with the new RunCam Nano 4, is it seems like they've decided to go larger for whatever reason. Maybe that's like part sourcing or stuff like that. But it's a similar form factor. However, this is almost 3 grams, whereas previously we were looking at, I believe, 1.6 grams, 1.4 grams for the RunCam Nano 3. So there is quite a bit of weight increase there for people who are trying to cut each little bit of weight. Anybody who's like flying the super small stuff like the Mr. Shutterbug and people like that will definitely be keeping to the lighter camera still, and this won't be an option for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, even like a 65 millimeter Tiny Whoop style, which comes in around 22 grams all up, would notice an extra 1.5 grams, right? But especially if you're doing those ultralight builds, which get down into the 10, 11, 12 gram range, that's a 10% difference. Still, this one is being manufactured and is in stock, which these days it could be all you need to know. And do you have any idea about the image quality?
Yeah, also I was going to say, it looks pretty good. I'm not going to say it looks amazing, but it does not seem to have that fogginess that we looked at. We talked about on the news. The RunCam Nano 3 has a fogginess issue where a lot of them are shipping, and it seems like they've changed the sensors or the way they're handling things. This does not seem to have that, so whatever is happening there seems to be isolated to the Nano 3.
Okay. The other camera we've got this month is the RunCam Night Eagle 3. If you are still interested in spending $70 on an analog camera, again, that has to reflect, like in my mind, a top tier analog camera should be like $45-50. This $70 pricing has to reflect component price increases because it's just so much higher than what I'm used to seeing. The RunCam Night Eagle is a starlight camera, a night vision camera. The Night Eagle line has been pretty good, pretty popular. Yeah, my God, $70 for an analog camera. Jeez. Have we got any footage of it?
From the, I'm not sure actually.
I'm going to look. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Okay. Just say from preliminary reports that I've seen, it seems pretty solid, but I don't believe we've seen any like footage out. This is the Eagle, not the Night Eagle.
Yeah. So that's one source of confusion is obviously RunCam Eagle was a very popular camera. Then the RunCam Eagle 3 came out, which was a different sensor. I don't see any footage from the Night Eagle, so obviously we would want to see footage before we made a decision. But
yeah, so maybe keep an eye out for footage before you pull the trigger on a $70 camera. But hopefully it'll be a really, really good option, like a better quality than we've seen for night stuff. But
yeah, it does look like a true Starlight camera with these black and white images, and not just like the original Eagle had really good low light sensitivity, but it was not a true Starlight camera that you could literally like run in the dark. So, alrighty, $70 for an analog camera. That's the world we're living in, Plenty. What a freaking world. All right. Let's just get some random stuff out of the way. We got a couple more sort of solid categories like batteries and motors that we got to get out of the way before we get to the giveaway. Woo! But let's do some random stuff. When we were looking for new products, I was surprised to see that the Pyrodrone had a new version of their backpack. It was up for pre-order. I hadn't heard about this yet. The original Pyrodrone backpack was freaking enormous. In fact, it was pretty sketchy if you intended to carry it on a plane, and just too big for some people. It's just the right size for some people. You know, some people like things to be bigger than other people, Blunty. Some people like it to be a little smaller.
It's very true. Yeah, I use a BPX3, so I think I have as much as you could carry, pretty much. But you had the original Pyrodrone backpack, right?
I did.
You did a review of that.
Yeah, I did. I actually showed it to my wife, and she said it was much too big for her. She said she really would prefer it to be a little bit smaller, and that's why I think this would be the perfect. I couldn't get away from it. The perfect backpack. The Pyrodrone Sport. It is a more backpack-sized backpack than a suitcase-sized backpack. Has similar design to the original to the other one in that, for example, it's got the removable. It's got the same dividers, similar dividers with Velcro. Removable waist strap, so you can be the nerdiest looking nerd at the nerd convention. The FPV pilots are already nerdy enough. Looks like pretty good design. I like the side pouches. Yeah.
As long as this holds up, it seems like it's a solid backpack.
Yeah, $149 is a decent price for an FPV focused backpack. Similar to, the Torval. What do you pay for the Torval? Or the iFlight bag. Torval Pitstop Pro, $166. iFlight backpack.
Similar price.
Yeah. iFlight backpack is $180. So this is coming in a little cheaper.
Doesn't look like they're like quad straps. At least easily accessible. To strap a quad, unless I missed them. Oh, there.
Yeah, okay. You got this cross style. The cross style is very versatile. You just kind of jam everything under there and then cinch it down. In my experience, it hinges on the quality of this cinch grabby thing here. If this is loose, then the whole thing falls apart. It looks like there are straps at the top and bottom as well for separate, whatever, like a tripod or something. So yeah, you got your chalk bag here for when you're climbing. You stick your chalk bag. No, that's what it reminds me of. So yeah, another contender. I've been using the iFlight bag for a while, and I'm a big fan of it. But there definitely are going to be some aspects of this bag that will appeal. And the issue that I had with my Pyrodrone bag of the buckle breaking due to the enormous amount of weight it could hold. Presumably this is made the same, but is smaller, so it carries less weight and will be more durable. At least fingers crossed. Yeah. Okay. Next up, do you use ND filters when you fly Plenty?
Not typically. It depends on what I'm doing, right? On the GoPro sometimes I have used them, and on the Insta360 Go too. But these are for the camera, right? Like the actual FPV camera?
Right. So this is the weird thing. Everyone who knows about cameras knows that ND filters are useful for giving you additional motion blur and giving you sort of smoother looking footage, especially during a very bright time of day. And pros all use ND filters. So nobody's debating whether ND filters are a good thing. But there's two things that I think are wrong with putting ND filters on the FPV camera. And the first one is that who cares if there's motion blur in the FPV camera? No one's going to see that anyway, mostly. Right?
Yeah, I don't understand what Jello. Yeah, I'm not familiar with an amount of Jello that you would have on an FPV camera that comes from just the light. You know, like I've
Yeah.
never noticed enough issue that I've ever thought I needed an ND filter of what I was looking through.
Yeah. And number two, in my now I haven't used these exact ones, so maybe they got it right, and we have to put that asterisk on this. In my experience, though, with this style of ND filter for FPV cams, it basically just slides on the front, like the Insta360 Go 2. It screws on, right? It's threaded.
Yep.
But this one, if in fact it just slides on, it's immediately going to pop off in a crash and it's going to be gone forever. And I've had that happen with the Caddx Tarsier shipped with ND filters like this. And the very first time I crashed, it was gone forever.
Yeah. I'm not sure I understand this, but I guess if this is something you were looking for, they've got them now.
All right. Well, Camera Butter, I'm a big fan, but this product just confuses me. I should probably just ask him, what were you thinking? And he'd probably tell me. But instead, we're just going to move on. All right, Plenty. Well, in continuing the pattern of me just quizzing you to introduce a new product, what do you think of ToolkitRC?
I'm thinking, why is this on the lineup? That's my thought.
Because why? Because why?
Yeah, because it's not good, I would assume, right? Because you shouldn't buy this.
ToolkitRC, the reason you're reacting that way is that ToolkitRC chargers have a very, generally a bad history of quality. Some of them are okay. Many of them fail in the field. And the final straw for me with regards to ToolkitRC was this live stream that Cyclone FPV did. Tarek from Cyclone FPV did.
Yeah, we showed that on the news, and essentially he tested, I believe it was the M4Q or MQ4 that he tested, and he did 10 of them because a customer complained and he wanted to check them out on camera, and all 10 of them were bad in some way or another with many different QC issues on those. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately for me as well, that is the final nail in the coffin for recommending ToolkitRC.
Yeah, there's just too many people who make better chargers. And nobody's a perfect track record. ISDT has had, occasional missteps and flaws and tried to make them right. Nobody's perfect. No one's expected to be perfect, but that was just the straw for me. But ToolkitRC sent me this, and I was like, you know what? I will take a look at it. Because number one, it's not a LiPo charger. If a LiPo charger screws up, it can burn your house down. That's not okay. But if a battery checker screws up, the stakes are lower, was my thinking. And this is a really cool little checker. Like, I use the ISDT checker, and it's like, let me put it up here. I use this ISDT battery checker, the BG8S. And this is, it's like, well, it's down to $40. When I first bought them, they were like $60. It's overkill for many people. Many people would not want to pay $40 for a battery checker, but it's really nice quality. Shows all the cells, good screen, USB, can act as a USB power adapter. It even has some checking function. It can generate like S-bus signals and do all this stuff. So it's pretty slick. This thing is very, very similar. It's a smaller form factor. It's very nice in the hand. And I thought, since it's not a LiPo charger, I would at least mention that it exists. Some people might feel like they want to get it.
That's fair. I think I am in the camp who would not spend $40 on a battery checker. So, I don't. This is not for me. But.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you're looking for a battery checker, the ISDT one is. I've had them for years, and they're amazing, and they're absolutely rock solid. But if you want something a little smaller and a cute little form factor, this is just a little easier to put in your pocket, and you're willing to take a chance on ToolkitRC. There it is. Okay. Last Blunty, this next product, I don't know what to say about it. It's a 660 milliamp hour 6S battery. And when I first saw it, I thought it looked just like the battery from Umagod's 250, but that's actually only like it's like half the size. I cannot figure out who wants a 660 milliamp hour 6S battery with an XT30 on it. Tell you what, let's do. Let's just search for 660 milliamp hour 6S. Well, I mean, this battery is all over the place, but what is it for? I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't know, like I would guess like a 3.5 inch or a 4 inch is my assumption of where it goes. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Some kind of like fat toothpick.
Yeah.
What comes on like a X-Night? Right? Something like that. That's where my head goes.
Yeah, I mean, like you could absolutely put this on an Omega 250 for what it's worth, and it would probably be pretty good compared to the 380 or something that comes with it. Maybe it's for a 250. You know, I mean, I might try to put one of these on a 250 if I wanted to, if I didn't care about staying under 250 grams.
Yeah, 550 6S.
Gotcha.
So we're right in the pocket.
And most of the batteries in this milliamp hour range, like this GMB 660, is a high volt. So that 660 this is actually like a 450 or a 500 milliamp hour cell overcharged to 4.35 volts. So it's not going to perform. This is probably going to perform much better because it's a much bigger, heavier cell. I think that I would put this on a 250 or something like that. A lightweight 5-inch. It's nice that Race Day Quads is making this pack.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all the batteries for this month. Let's talk motors. And the first motor I want to talk about is not a motor, but a motor bell. And the reason I want to bring it up is because many people buy motors and they want to be able to buy spare bells and replace them when they break them. And if you're one of those people, it can be harder and harder these days to find motors that people actually sell the bells, especially as things have gotten more expensive. A lot of people have ramped that back. Well, the Xing-E is a solid budget motor. And if you have the Xing-E Pro 2306, you can buy the bells. And I just thought that was worth a shout out to iFlight for making this available.
All right. I got to ask why? Why?
Why what?
It's $12 for a bell, $16 for a motor.
Yep. I hear you.
It seems like, okay.
I mean,
like it's really the cost. If you look at the cost of that motor, it's really $12 of that, $16 in the bell. Like I don't know. Like sell me 4 for less or something. I don't know. It seems weird because I'm
just going to try and argue with you just to keep it interesting. I'm with you. Yeah. I mostly just replace motors, but I have the luxury of being a YouTuber and a professional for whom time is more valuable than money in some ways. So I don't assume that I'm alone there, but I'm with you in my heart. In the field, it's easier to unscrew the screw and replace a bell than it is to solder on a new motor.
Okay, that's fair. If you're doing field repair with a bell, I'll give you that one, 100%.
I mean, you save $4 a motor. I mean, oftentimes when you smash a motor, the stator is fine, 100% fine, and it's always the bell or the shaft that takes the hit. So you're basically getting a brand new motor. Well, no, that's not true because the bearings go bad. That's the weak spot of this argument.
I was going to say the concern is for me is bearing. How do you know the bearing didn't get damaged? And then you order a bell to replace it, and then you put it on, and it's still crunch, and then you're like, oh no.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, I know you're out there, you people who love to buy spare bells, and because I get emails and they're like, hey, I can't find spare bells for this motor. Do you know where to get it? And recently someone asked me, what motor should I buy that I can actually get spare bells for? Here it is. This is one of them anyway. If you know other motors that the spare bells are readily available, put them down in the comments.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And get that engagement. What's next, Blunty?
All right. Let's take a look at T-Motor's new Whoop motors. I don't believe T-Motor's ever made a Whoop motor previously before, and now we've got it. So they made an 0802 and an 0803 Whoop motor. If those are the kind of things you're looking for, which is kind of neat.
So these would be for something like the Mobula 6 that went down to the 7mm motors.
Yep. Also, just want to say, nice to see T-Motor not trying to do their F naming system.
Oh my God, that's the
on a tiny Whoop.
Yeah, that's my motor. Favorite thing about this motor. Is they actually just called it the F0802 and the 0803 instead of like the F8 and the F9 or some BS
I believe
like
they said I believe they said we didn't do that because of customer feedback. So good job, everybody who complained about that.
Oh, I mean, presumably these are good quality motors. T-Motor usually makes good motors. $12 is presumably a little expensive compared to like a Happy model. How much is a Happy model 0802?
That's about right. I think 10 or $12 probably. I'm gonna guess.
Sheesh, what kind of a world am I living in? Amazon, $22 for two Happy model. I mean, I would bet that they're better quality than Happy model motors. No offense, Happy model.
I would agree. One other thing I like about this, or like is, whatever, but I put a link. You could also click here for the advertisement for these motors, which I just thought I would draw the eye to.
Okay, this is a Facebook ad. Don't belittle me. The energy is on the verge. I hate to. I hate to make fun of someone for not speaking English like a native, because I certainly don't speak. I'm gonna guess Chinese, or Mandarin or whichever dialect. I certainly don't speak that at all. But my God, hire someone to do your advertising copy, please.
Well, I'm sure they have plenty of team pilots who'd be happy to take a pass.
Right? Just ask a team pilot to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Be like, hey, does this sound like stupid? Don't believe. What was the original phrasing that they ran through Google Translate to try to come up with this? Let's figure it out.
I have to assume. Yeah. I came up with don't denigrate me. The torque is over the edge. There's plenty of variations.
Energy is on the verge. It's on the verge. Don't belittle me. Okay.
All right.
Oh my God. Oh, I don't want to do this one. We're going to do this one. We have to.
Right.
This is the new Ethix Flat Rats. This is Ethix Mr. Steele's Cinewhoop motor, the Flat Rat. 1507 is a fine size for, I think that's a little dated. I think many people running Cinewhoops these days are not running 1507s anymore. They're going to different, 2203, whatever. I don't know what the size is, but fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Here's what's wrong with that. I was like, okay, there's a new motor from Ethix. What is it? What do they say about their own motor? Realizing that flight times need to be increased with the weight of newer HD cameras getting bigger. That's true. GoPro Hero 10, a little heavier. And so you see the CineLog 3.5 going to 3.5 inch props to handle that weight. What did Ethix do? Ethix decided to go with a higher KV winding to increase the thrust. Wait, back up. If your quad is too heavy and you want longer flight time, do you increase the KV, Blunty?
No. The answer is no.
I don't think so either.
No, it's because the obvious reason is because the only way you would need to increase KV is because if you were literally out of thrust on a lower KV.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Which doesn't seem to be the intention because these are only 2800.
Well, higher KV will give you more top end.
Yeah.
But the point that it will tend to decrease your flight time because you will tend to hammer the motors harder. You will feel more power when you fly. You'll hammer the motors harder and you'll decrease your flight time generally.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know.
So how would you increase flight time if your quad was too heavy and you want longer flight time?
Well, it depends on what you have. They do talk about 3-inch here, but probably change prop pitch, change prop blade count, go to larger props, different variations like that.
Larger props. I think larger props and lower KV. Now, obviously, this is based around Steele's Cinerat frame, which is made for 3-inch props, so that's not an option. But if you did want to tweak the KV, you would lower the KV, or you would put a throttle scale on your throttle, which would force you to, it's like eco mode in your car. It forces you to drive more conservatively. And so you get less performance, but you get longer flight time. It doesn't make any sense to me that they wrote this copy, that you're going to argue that higher KV motor deals better gives you longer flight time on a heavy quad. It seems like it does the exact opposite. So, and that is going to bring us to the end of the video, Blunty. And normally this is the part where I ask you, what do you think we should give away? And we talk it over for a while, but the decision is already made. I've already made the decision. I'm giving away my DJI Action camera, the DJI Action V2, a $500 value.
Okay.
And I'm giving it away because I don't want it. It's good. Some people will love it. It's not for me. If you want to know why, watch my full review, link in the video description. But I did spend $500 on it. And I'm gonna roll that into my giveaway budget this month. And try to make it back some of the money from that video.
I'm sure there's plenty of people who will be super excited to get an Action 2. So
especially when it costs them nothing.
Yes.
All right. So we are giving away one DJI Action 2 this month. Instead of doing a bunch of lower ticket items like we sometimes do, we're going to do one big ticket item. It is like brand new. I've not crashed it or broken it. The one that I broke, I replaced. This is the new one. Instructions for how to enter the giveaway are down in the video description. There is a Google form link down at the bottom, of the very bottom. And when the winner is announced, I will announce it on my community page of my YouTube channel and in a pinned comment at the top of this video. So if you are checking back and wondering if I've announced the winner, if you don't see a pinned comment at the top of the comment section with the winner's names, I haven't announced it yet. It usually takes me about a week just because that's how my schedule works. It's going to do it, Blunty. Thank you again. Always fun.
Thanks a lot, Joshua. Yeah, always a good time. So
awesome. Well, I will see you next month for our next big new product roundup giveaway. I hope you're subscribed so you don't miss it, because we don't do it at the same time every month.
Very true. Very true.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Thanks.
Patrons are the people who make all this possible. Not to disrespect you, because you're watching all the way to the end, which really helps the analytics. So I guess without you watching, none of this would be possible. But if you would subscribe or join my Patreon, $2 a month or more, it's up to you. Or at the very least, leave a comment or click the affiliate links and do the show. Isn't it a beautiful day? Man, the lighting looks good out here. What's up, y'all? Out for a walk.